a lot of downloading stuff at the same time, and I think the network is a bit heavy right now. I haven't tried it with anything else.
Definitely weren't about to say something about it.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Monero Coffee Chat. We're live. We're trying to make this a little bit more casual, so we have people on talking about our internet connections right now. And lovely background noises going on with somebody. We're also using OBS to screen capture because Jitsi, as you can imagine, is receiving high volume at the moment. So Jitsi's default live stream feature is not working, but we're using OBS to screen capture, which means actually the quality might be a little bit higher for you because I set it to do in 1080p. But yeah, we have fun people on. We're talking about internet connections. We're talking about how suddenly when there's more people using internet at home, the bandwidth data caps just suddenly disappear and they suddenly increase the speeds for everyone despite everyone using it a bit more. So just something that we were all remarking about before the chat. Doug, what connection do you have with yourself? Ooh, did he disappear? Okay. Wow, what a good start to the coffee chat. Anyway, so Sarang's going off. I have my coffee here. Does anyone else have any beverages that they'd like to share with us today? No one else is prepared?
Back in a second.
Back in a second. Okay, so someone else is getting something to drink. Okay, good. Other question. Remember, to give a little bit of background, this is this Monero Coffee Chat is something we do every month. It's meant to be pretty casual. We're trying to make it more casual here, probably to a detriment at the moment, but it'll be for eventual long-term benefit. But we're here to answer questions. We have a lot of people on who are able to answer questions about the Monero community, other Monero-related questions. Snipa actually went through the effort in order to make us a self-hosted Jitsi, but a lot of the features weren't quite working yet. So hopefully next time we will be having our own self-hosted Jitsi instance that is a little bit more reliable when they are super, super busy. Snipa wanted to join it, but again, could not join this time. So hopefully the next lead Monero maintainer will be joining a later episode here. I guess we can go through introductions like we always do then. So, my name is Justin. I'm the organizer of the Monero community work group along with Doug and Diego. Diego might join late, but at the moment we only have Doug here. Also, how about Doug? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a moderator in the community and I do various stuff to help out and connect people. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. All right, what about you, Scott?
Yeah, I'm Scott. I help maintain the Japanese localization for the GUI, and I also help out with DEF CON stuff.
Great, thanks, Scott. Howard?
Hey, had to unmute myself. So yeah, I'm Howard. I do not drink coffee, so I actually haven't been doing much on the Monero code lately because most of the stuff that I worked on seems to be working, so hasn't needed any hands-on.
You did something different to your audio today. It's very worse.
Oh, is it? See, last time I was connected over my phone. This time I'm using my laptop. I can switch back to my phone.
That might be preferable.
Yeah, other people in the chat are just like, yeah, they're agreeing with the worst statement. But we still nevertheless are happy to have you on here, Howard. We're just plain fun. Lee, what about you?
Yes, so I've been a contributor for several years into the Monero daemon wallet, my Monero backend at various points. And so recently, of course, there's been Dandelion++ and a lot of stuff in ZMQ that just got pushed out over the last couple of weeks.
Sweet. All right, what about you, Eric Mine?
Well, I've been involved with Monero since 2014. Currently, I'm on the core team, but currently what I'm working on is scaling algorithms, and in fact, scaling algorithms to deal with COVID-19. So
Yeah,
there you go.
I think we'll get to that topic. I think everyone's sort of interested in the way things are going there. All right, what about you, Sarang? And I heard you have a special drink that you'd like to share with the audience.
Oh, are you referring to this like tall flute of orange coffee?
Of course, orange coffee.
Yeah, it's a new hit thing for the weekend. Hi,
Okay.
I'm Sarang. I am a mathematician and researcher. And I guess, have you guys been saying like things you've been working on recently?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, a little bit. And I'll say a little bit about what I've been working on. Continued work on signature constructions, mainly like Triptych, Triptych 2, and CLSAG. So a lot of math, a lot of code, a lot of testing, a lot of papers, things like that.
Yeah, and I would also like to add that Sarong, a couple days ago, who got fully funded for another quarter. So fantastic, and thank you to all the donors. The MRL
Sweet.
is chugging along perfectly.
Indeed, excellent. And then also featured in this chat, which you should pay absolutely no attention to, is this user NSA Van, which shows up in your screen as NV. That is the computer that is capturing this and sending it to YouTube. So that's the purpose of the NSA Van, providing excellent services to the Monero community since today, or as we know of today, perhaps longer periods of time without us all knowing. That's kind of the whole point of the NSA Van. Anyway, so I guess big topic conversation. Everyone's sort of been at home, holed up. I've been into my apartment really for the last 2 weeks. I haven't been out to a store in the past 3 weeks or so. How's everyone else been holding up during this time? Anyone have any fun hobbies that they've taken up other than Monero related things that they'd like to share?
I gotta say, Justin, it's like I've been training for this my entire life.
Okay. Doug is the real prepper here. He's been So what past experience has helped you in the past few weeks, or like what has all this planning helped you with these past few weeks, Doug? How has it helped you?
Caught up on a bunch of moderation backlog. We've added some fancy new rules I'm not at liberty to discuss that are dealing with spam pretty well. So that's nice.
More spam related stuff. That's always cool. Scott, what's going on your end of the world?
Well, so I mean, how to put it? I've actually been doing kind of a major sprint of sorts for work. So I've been kind of working days, nights, and weekends. So I really haven't had much free time. I actually just finished Thursday with the deliverable. So now I can actually get back to things that I've been wanting to do, like certifications for stuff and whatnot. So
you've been too busy to think about it.
Pretty much, yeah, much to the detriment of my family. So like, like, because they're isolated too, and so it's like I don't really interact with them because I'm like work. But now,
got it.
So.
All right. Anyone else have any fun hobbies that they've decided to start doing?
Well, I started doing a lot of my gardening. I'm actually working in the house. In British Columbia, you can still actually get out and you can actually walk around, as long as you stay away from other people. Walking through downtown Vancouver, it is like a ghost town. You see the odd person boarding up a business. So you actually get a feeling that things have really changed just by doing that. You can still drive around and walk around, so you can see a lot of this. And then I've been spending a lot of time online researching the economic impacts of this, following the stock market. It's crashed, and I expect it to be a lot worse, by the way. And following and trying to get a grip on exactly what impact is this going to have on the Monero network. And so that's kind of what I've been doing.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's been a weird set of past few weeks or months or so in the normal stock markets, and then in crypto markets actually done relatively well. Like I was expecting most people who are invested in cryptocurrency to sort of be their play money that they kind of are doing it as a moonshot, and when things got tough, they would pull a lot of money back and they would actually need to pay rent and things. And to some extent, I think that definitely is true, but it's to a lesser extent than I probably would have expected. What are everyone's else thoughts on there? Sort of as times get hard. I mean, I know I'm sort of asking a very biased group here, I imagine, but what do you sort of envision? I know we don't normally talk about price that much, but like in general, do you think Monero is something that will have some type of like staying power if times really get tough, or do you think people are going to double down on the essentials that they need in normal life?
I mean, I think the value of cryptocurrency is against inflation, so it really depends on exactly what kind of government intervention occurs. If we see rampant printing in order to combat people staying at home and needing to pay for goods and services, I mean, yeah, that's quite possibly going to be causing a rise in cryptocurrencies just because the value of money is going to be eroded.
Well, actually, what I'm seeing is a bit more interesting, and it's interesting because one of the things that got me started on this was, of course, an issue that was raised by COE issue in MRL 70, where the initial simulation, one of the examples, is actually a small-scale nuclear war, but the what I have seen is very much following some of the predictions in there, and that is an initial fall in price, the chaos, the response, the emotional, people need to pull money out to cover shorts or to purchase essentials, etc. So you see that element. And then you see the decoupling, which I think we're starting to see right now, from the stock market and from the overall markets, where in effect, like gold, cryptocurrency is seen as a hedge against the dangers. Now, I do see three things in the future which could potentially have impacts on the Monero network. The first one is that if people get poorer, which they will, I mean, the unemployment rate is expected to exceed that of the peak of the Great Depression in the 1930s, then you will see a lot of people losing their credit, losing their access to credit cards and debit cards and so on. So for online payments, they're going to have to turn to somebody else, and cryptocurrency is an option there, number one. Number two, that I see, which is interesting, is that with this coronavirus, ship and pin. Sorry,
Justin, is it possible to fix his microphone?
I turned it down to half.
Okay, people.
Is it
people
too
are
high?
getting mad. Yeah, your gain or something is way too loud, and it's hurting people's ears.
Okay, I should then. I have too much gain.
I don't know what
that
the
right
issue is.
now.
Here, did that help? I turned it down even more.
Okay, my gain on the microphone. Let's take a look at that for a second. Okay. Headphone, speaker.
It's always fun things going on.
Oh,
Well, it's still better than a Zoom call, right?
Yeah.
Gotta get
That's
that
correct.
in there.
Okay, input.
Has anyone had to use a Zoom call the past few weeks? I do wish Jitsi had. I think so. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Make sure if you're in chat, make sure you let me know if you can appropriately hear Arctic Mind still, in addition to me turning things down. But yeah, it is better at least on my end, Arctic Mind. So, has anyone had to go through a Zoom call yet? Suffer through those things? I've had a few of them. I wish that Jitsi had a feature where you can have those lovely backgrounds. Like you can blur your background in Jitsi. It doesn't work very well, but you can. And it would be cool if you could just have some of the background images. I've seen people use some pretty fun ones in the background.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you. Oh, but one thing that is, it says that everyone is excessively loud. Okay, I tried to set that properly.
If everyone's excessively loud, have you considered just turning down the global volume?
I have it set that it's not going into the red zone; it's in the yellow. So hopefully that's. I can turn it down a bit more.
Try the background blur. It's not going great.
No, the performance is atrocious.
Oh no, it's making my computer very angry. I'm gonna turn it off.
Yeah, it does. My mom is a first grade teacher, and reportedly she does this game with her students. It's called the 1, 2, 3, everyone turn your mic off game. And I thought that was pretty funny. Because the kids need to know how to unmute themselves, but like also they like it's just kind of funny that they have a whole game where everyone has to do that. I thought that was pretty funny. But it seems like Jitsi seems to be getting a little bit more attention. Most sources I've seen that recommend some type of video conferencing tools include Jitsi in the list at least as like an open source alternative. And if you've seen their GitHub, it's sort of been blowing up with a lot of people reporting like, hey, I can't stream, hey, I can't this or whatever, just because it's busy. So it's just kind of funny. So.
Okay.
Hey, I just want to comment on Zoom. Actually, I'm in a community choir here, and we tried to do a choir practice over Zoom. It was pretty horrible. So it's strange that the quality of audio on all of these things is so abysmally bad. You'd
Was
think
it bad
that
because of synchronization? Like, did you just get desync issues or what?
apparently Zoom is optimized to like, focus on only a single speaker at a time. So when one person starts speaking, they get like 90% of the audio bandwidth. But when multiple people start speaking, then Zoom kind of falls apart. And so you can't have more than one active audio source.
Got it. Well, we have 2 new people joining us. Thank you, Doug and Vic. Great to have you on.
How's it going, guys? I hope are there too many people on?
There aren't too many people on. We're filling the screen here. We have, in addition, well, not including the NSA van, we have 10 people on. So that's pretty cool.
Too many. I guess that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, with the NSA van, and like who knows how many people are watching.
Justin, you never sent me the link, so I'm crashing this anyway.
Oh, I didn't make the link private enough, apparently.
Yeah,
Trying to
next time do better.
On this interloper.
I don't even know that guy who just spoke, by the way.
It looks like you're checking in from a nice warm place there, Vic.
Yeah, I've been quarantined at our Florida house for the last month.
Oh darn!
Sounds rough.
Yeah, I'm actually enjoying it. Everyone's complaining, but I'm like, this is great. For a whole month, I haven't traveled. I've just got to chill, eat right, sleep properly. It's so far so good. Let's see if I lose my mind another 30 days though.
Yeah, I think it's good for especially people with some introvert tendencies, which I certainly have. There's a silver lining to the.
I think the whole Monero community is a bunch of introverts.
Yeah.
Maybe Justin's the only extrovert.
Yeah, it depends on the day and occasion. So we have a ton of people watching. A lot of people probably have nothing else to do on this Saturday, so they're paying attention to us right now. But they also are not asking us questions. They're just talking about like. I don't know.
We're here to answer things from the community, like to field questions and tell you stuff live.
Yeah, we're as bored as you are. So, yeah, just looking at this chat, looking for conversation topics. I guess, Sarang, I had a question yesterday when I had an interview with the Dollar Vigilante, and they asked me a question about Triptych and Triptych 2. So I guess you want to give like a really high level overview about what this is and the differences between the two.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about like CLSEG in the past, which was like kind of a moderate improvement to the way we do ring signatures. That it's not really like a scaling solution, but for the same kind of smallish ring sizes that we have now, it ends up being a little bit smaller and a little bit faster, which is a good benefit. So it's like a straightforward improvement that is going pretty well. There's always kind of been this big search for like some kind of next generation protocol for doing transactions and ring signatures and stuff. that could scale to like higher anonymity set sizes. And that stuff's really tough to do. There's like all these kind of limitations in place on like how fast you can verify them. And of course, like size ends up normally being an issue, right? You want your transactions to ideally be pretty small and pretty fast. And so Triptych and Triptych 2 are different variations on like a particular proving system that's been around for a while that other researchers have come up with. And it's been applied in a few different ways. So if you've heard of Lelantis, which is another kind of idea for how to do kind of like a zero coin style anonymity set transaction protocol. It's based on the same thing. And basically Triptych would let us, I think the best way to describe it, I guess kind of at a base level, Triptych, which was like the first kind of iteration of this, which has a preprint that's been posted, so anyone can look at it if they're interested. It's still like our current system, basically requires like a separate signature for every input that's spent in a transaction. And each of those inputs, of course, has an anonymity set. But it lets us scale to much higher anonymity sets, like on the order of hundreds or, even up to thousands if you really wanted to. The limiting factor is still the verification time of transactions. Like you can kind of batch stuff down to make it a little faster, but verification time is still the limiting factor. The nice thing is size is not. So you can boost up to much higher anonymity set sizes while keeping the transactions really small. So it really just comes down to like what's the limit of how long you want it to take to verify a transaction. And then Triptych 2 is an improvement on that, which lets you use just one signature / proof for all of the inputs that are spent at the same time. So it's I think a much bigger improvement. The security guarantees are a little bit less in that there's like this particular cryptographic hardness assumption that you need to assume is valid. And I think it's a reasonable one, but it's like not really a tested one. But it's based on a very similar approach. So basically at the end of the day, they both let you kind of do ring signature style transaction protocols, but in a way that scales a lot better.
We like scaling here in Monero, so that's cool.
We do, yeah. And, I should say, Triptych 2 recently just got posted to the IACR preprint archive too. So it's open, like anyone can look it over. More eyes is always better for this stuff. So hopefully you get those submitted to conference proceedings too, to get them some peer review, which is a much longer process than we always want it to be, like very long process.
Got it. I can hear some birds in the background. It's lovely. Okay, I guess, Doug, you just had an interview come out yesterday, I believe, with Raphael. Do you want to give like a really high-level overview of how that went, teasing why people should listen to that?
Yeah, sure. So I recorded that one a while ago, actually, at Anarcho-Poco. So Raphael it's interesting because he's a big Monero guy and he's also a big Bitcoin SV guy. So basically he did a talk on how the two coins are kind of polar opposites in what they fundamentally believe in. Monero being, default private, and Bitcoin SV being, transparent and proud of it. So he gave an interesting talk. We basically go through his talk and kind of hit the comparisons that he makes between Monero and Bitcoin SV. I noticed, I don't think it got a lot of upvotes on Reddit. I think it's kind of controversial in the Monero community to be even like mentioning Bitcoin SV. But Raphael's a really interesting guy. He has some really good insights. Definitely worth listening to. I personally am not a Bitcoin SV believer, but I would recommend tuning in. He does give some interesting points as to why somebody might be interested in Bitcoin SV. And that was that talk. That was a while ago though. We only just got it up. That was at Anarcho-Poco, and then we have 2 more talks I think we'll be posting from that. So.
Cool. And then do you want to give a quick, little tiny spiel about how you are now running for Congress?
Yeah, I'll give a tiny spiel. I don't want to be like a politician now in Monero.
Oh, you are now a politician.
Am I now a politician? So, in my day job, so unrelated to Monero, I'm the commissioner of engineering for the town of Hempstead. The town of Hempstead is a municipality on Long Island in New York, in Nassau County. So I'm kind of involved politically, locally in the Republican Party over here. And it just kind of is an opportunity that presented itself. And I actually, what one of the kind of the motivating factors for me was the fact that I am very much into Monero, and I'm kind of seeing this, as we're arriving at this point where it's becoming an issue of whether or not something like Monero, free speech money, is something that governments can regulate and should regulate and will try to regulate, and especially in a country like America, whether or not there's any grounds to essentially do that. And I just kind of, obviously there's a lot of local issues I want to focus on, but I'm very much, impassioned by this preserving liberty in the digital age concept, as all of you I'm sure heard on any of the shows I do, and Monero kind of being a tool for that. And yeah, I mean, somebody made a joke like the Monero candidate. I don't know if I want to be known for that, but that's certainly a big part. Obviously with the Monero community, I can say this. That's certainly a very large part of what I'm looking to do. So hopefully, if I got elected, kind of be the voice of crypto and in particular Monero on the floor of Congress, somebody actually making these arguments. I mean, we see people talking about Bitcoin now. They've been talking about it for a while in Congress. But whenever the hard question is always asked, which is, what if terrorists use this? Or what if it's used for nefarious things? The default answer always becomes, well, actually, Bitcoin's extremely traceable and all transactions can be followed. So there's no concern about that. And for me, that's kind of a scary thing. So nobody's actually making the free speech argument. They're making the argument of, yeah, all right, no, Bitcoin's great because if it is used for these nefarious purposes, we can track it and we can trace it. Nobody's then saying, hey, well, there's this other thing called Monero that you can't track and trace, but we should also be proponents of that. And as a government, as the American government, we should allow that to flourish, not be looking to basically curtail its growth because of the fact that it's aligned with the values of what I believe America is all about, which is liberty. So
yeah, we should talk to Coin Center.
Yeah, no, I know they kind of allude to those things. They have that great paper that came out about digital cash. But yeah, like I said, nobody's really making the argument in Congress. And whenever Bitcoin is attacked, it's always default goes back to, well, have no fear. All transactions are recorded on this ledger. In case you didn't realize, it's not anonymous like you thought it was. In fact, it's quite the opposite. So there's nothing to worry about. And I just kind of want to make the Monero argument, and then also say, but yeah, also there's nothing to worry about because there's a lot more benefits that are going to come with this technology than the potential negatives. So that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions in terms of the Congress thing, please let me know.
Yeah, if you have questions, leave those in the chat here. We have a pretty open time here. It looks like not too many other questions are coming in. We had someone ask a question about block reward that was answered in chat there, that Monero's block reward is 0.6 for, its tail emission, 30 years from now is 0.6 Monero per block, or about 0.3 per minute on average. But yeah, otherwise, I think we can talk about the Monero anniversary, or the Monero-versary, or birthday, or however you want to call it, which is happening in 2 weeks' time. It actually falls on a Saturday this year. So we're going to be joining back in 2 weeks. What are the sort of things that we can do as a community to make this event like super special? I mean, I know we have thrown ideas around about having, Monero coffee chat like thing, and then also in addition have a sort of like Monero happy hour, so to speak, which is meant to be more informal. We can play games, we can just have fun. What type of games would people be interested in playing if we wanted to have those? I guess, Lee, what do you think would be a good game to play? Just putting you on the spot.
Oh, the first thing that came to mind was getting Howard drunk and asking him about JavaScript or something, and he would just ramble.
Having Howard ramble about things that he doesn't like and think are stupid. Okay. I'll write that down.
Yeah, I don't know.
Howard-
That's not really a game. It's just sort of amusement.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the whole point. We're there for like amusement. So, okay, I'll put on here Howard hot takes. Okay. What else? And this is open to the chat too. What would you like to see Monero community members making a fool out of themselves doing during the next Monero anniversary? Again, it's next Saturday. It's not even necessarily going to be just an hour of activities. We have time all over we have a lot of time. We have the whole day, and I don't think anyone else is going to be traveling or anything that would take up a lot of plans here. So Howard hot takes. I know we can always do some type of like Jackbox TV type thing because that's easy to stream and have people use their phones to join in. Some of those games work well with a wide audience too, so that's another option. What are your thoughts on other games you think we could be doing?
I keep trying to get people to play Secret Hitler, but like nobody wants to play. Like seemingly nobody wants to play. So
I think Secret Hitler would be a fantastic game to play. That one's always fun. My youngest brother really likes that game just because he gets to shout at people and call them fascists. So I mean, like that's kind of the whole point of the game, I would say. Vic, do you have any ideas that come to mind? He's looking them up. Oh, you have to run. All right. Vic, any parting words when you want to leave, as you leave? Maybe he's also mostly left the conversation here.
Yeah, I got the boot somehow, so maybe he did too.
Got it. Yeah. Thanks, Vic, for joining us. Yeah, people saying that they like watching people play Secret Hitler. It's a fun game to play.
Oh yeah, that one.
We can also do like Drawful. That was free, so everyone can kind of have a copy of that. Yep. Bye, Vic.
So if everyone watches you play Secret Hitler, does that mean everyone watching knows who Hitler is and the players
that's a good
don't?
question. I don't know. We'd have to. Doug, do you know how we would actually have the back end of that work?
I think we could probably set it up with somebody having a view of just general overview of the board. Like maybe there's a spectate mode, so they can't see anybody's cards. They have to guess who's who. Just like
Okay.
Cool. It'd be cool if they had like
yeah, you wouldn't be looking at one person's view. You'd be seeing the general view as if you were just like standing above the board watching the game play out.
We tried playing 0 AD one time, and although I think it was kind of fun, everyone was too serious. Where they were playing like a strategy game, just not talking that much, and everyone was just you're watching only my screen, not anyone else's. And
you think I trust these guys?
Yeah, we played a win in Monero.
We played a win. Yeah, exactly. You don't have a fun time playing these games. You just all get too focused. So. I don't know, Sarang, do you have any ideas of fun activities to do during the Monero-versary in 2 weeks?
There we go.
A big get together.
Yeah, we should have a physical meetup. I think that'd be a fantastic idea, Doug.
Oh man, I feel very on the spot right now for the Monero. I don't know. I guess it'd be kind of interesting to kind of do like some almost like informal interview kind of retrospective about where's the community come in the past year, few years, and like how has the protocol developed. It's like what were some goals that people kind of had either formally or informally, and like did they meet them? Did they not meet them? What were the challenges?
So do you mean like live interviews or something where we more so prepare that ahead of time?
I think kind of like, because I know in the past we've done stuff where it's, folks kind of jump on like some kind of like Jitsi call and just kind of talk about what they've done.
Somebody on IRC just suggested, I don't know if they meant that everybody do this or specifically Sarang do this for the Monero-versary, but do a pen and paper block live.
A what?
Oh, you mean that? You mean like go ahead and like construct do all like
solve a block? Yeah, solve a block.
And, like the hashes on paper.
With pen and paper live.
Do the proof of work random X on pen and paper? Is that...
Yeah, well, just whatever it takes for a full block.
Oh man! So here's the question, right? It's like, which one would take longer, like getting the proof of work down, or like trying to do all of the elliptic curve math on paper?
You can have a race.
Oh.
Well, I imagine you can use a
yeah,
calculator
cool.
too. Like, it's not just
Cool.
paper. You can use a
It's gonna take
calculator.
you the rest of your life to do this.
There we go. So Howard will race with random X, and then Sarang will do the crypto, and we'll see who finishes first, right? We'll see, like, who knows their respective fields better.
There was
All right,
the
I need to
case.
buy 2,000 notebooks for that.
If I use a calculator, then I'm just going to program random X onto my HP 48GX.
There was a case where
Nyack on IRC has suggested karaoke. I will not be participating.
Ooh, are you sure you won't be doing karaoke, Doug? We can play your
I'm
favorite
pretty
song.
sure. I'm
Wait a
pretty
second,
sure.
like do we like karaoke with very slight delays in the audio? That's gonna go great.
And it's recorded, so it's like
I don't
double.
know. You're gonna have to
I don't
ask
think anyone
Nyack.
wants any evidence of that to be sticking around.
Yeah, no one wants evidence of that. I wonder what songs would be. What does Doug listen to? What do we think Doug listens to? You're gonna divulge that, so I can just put you on the spot and just force you to do
Lyricless
karaoke?
electronic music.
Electronic music with no lyrics.
Then you could do a dance off then instead.
Yeah, exactly. I think the idea of having a race or contest is a really good one. Whether it's a karaoke session, if we get people willing to do that, I think it's unlikely though. Dance off.
Someone
Doug,
on
would you
YouTube has suggested pin the tail on the fluffy pony.
pin the tail on Fluffy Pony? How would that work? Would it just be Fluffy Pony and we all just, I don't know. Howard sent us a.
Somebody has asked in the chat, unrelated to Moneroversary, what do we think about second layers for Monero? Right now, I believe the things that we're looking at for second layers would be Lightning, however much you believe that actually works in real life, and secondarily Tari. And I do not have an update on Tari. I haven't looked at that in a couple months, but I assume it's still chugging along because I haven't heard anything catastrophic.
Yeah, has anyone else been paying attention to Tari, really? I haven't been paying too much attention.
I pay attention occasionally, but I don't. Yeah, I don't know what their current progress is for launch or anything like that. I know that
the idea was to merge mine.
They're not really a second layer, right? They're
They're kind of their own layer.
Yeah,
I think the current design is a Mimblewimble based design, but they may have changed some of the design principles. But I mean, it was envisioned as a merged mine, kind of separate token based system.
Yeah, like Monero's over here and Tari's like near it, but also its own thing.
Yeah, I mean, like in the case of like the kind of traditional second layer solutions, one of the problems is that, we don't have kind of traditional scripting just because of the way that the crypto works. So that makes things really challenging. And trying to introduce something that does something like scripting introduces all sorts of questions about like transaction uniformity. So like DLSAG was kind of this big solution that would have done like some really interesting things, but it has its own trade-offs that we really haven't been able to work around. So besides that, trying to look at different kind of swap solutions, has been envisioned as well. At least you can kind of offload some of the work to another chain-based system, but that's still very much ongoing. And a lot of that stuff requires like some particular proving systems that like we don't really have yet. Mm-hmm. So it's a challenge, but I think a lot of it's just because of the way a lot of the underlying math and the plumbing work. And
so the original crypto note or the original crypto note had scripting support, right?
Well, it was never really completed though in the code. That was kind of the weird part.
Okay. For something like, the things that we really care about, like atomic swap to other chains and maybe multisig or whatever other things it might be useful for, you don't need super complicated scripts, do you? You're only talking about a few opcodes and then you're done. So one of the approaches we could take is simply say, okay, you can have a script that's up to 16 opcodes, and anything you don't use, you just fill with no ops. And then every script is uniform length, and we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, but I also wonder about what this still does for basically like having different anonymity pools. I mean, that's kind of like one of the big issues now is looking at, oh, Howard, you muted yourself. I don't know if that was intentional. But yeah, I mean, one of the issues now is like anything that's not quite uniform ends up in the possibilities, like you can end up introducing heuristics about things like decoy selection and use cases. And I don't know, I think it's something that has, if it were to be investigated, you have to tread pretty carefully.
Yeah, one thing that Maxwell,
anything that's optional or, you know, has any kind of distinguishing feature, like can lead to heuristics. And in general, like that's really irritating for trying to build something that's ideally supposed to have some ambiguity to it.
yeah, one of the things that Maxwell pointed out is that we could almost do taproot because in the optimal case, nothing is revealed. But the problem is when you had to back out and sort of reveal the script, the ring signatures just wouldn't work right. You'd have to reveal which of the ring was being spent. So I think that's the kind of thing that Ryan is talking about. That it's kind of funky with the scripting because you can't you really have an anonymity set of one, really. I think in most cases.
Well, and like one of the points of DLSAG was that it was supposed to give kind of this ambiguous refund possibility system that could work really nicely with things like multisig, and like that ends up having these funky interactions with key images, and that's why like DLSAG has this tracing issues. Like it's a really non-trivial problem. It's one of those things where like I feel like it's something it's easy to like say, and then you try to do it with the plumbing that we have, and you just run into all these issues that are kind of showstoppers.
Strang also did co-author a payment channels paper that may be useful, but it may be a little too technical.
Just catching up on the chat here, we had someone give a recommendation of a price guessing game with the prize. So I wrote that idea down. Thank you, laissez-faire, for your recommendation there. Also, we had a question saying, what are the challenges for implementing Lightning for Monero? Is this another one you want to take, Sarang or Lee?
Sarang's probably researched it more than just about anybody. So
yeah. If he's gone for a second.
Probably, yeah. So I mean, one of the difficulties they've had to work through are sort of refund addresses because you typically, like in a lot of those, any type of these payment channels or atomic swaps, you say pay to this address, you know, or this one after a certain amount of time. And so the difficulty there is sort of making that indistinguishable from all other payments. And so I believe it was Random Run was one of the first to come up with a method where based on height, it would sort of change unbeknownst to the verifier or anybody else, but it would change on which public key was now valid. And I don't remember the specifics, so that's why you would need Sarang. And so that's part of what his payment channels paper was about this sort of how you would sort of use like the sort of HTLC type stuff, but with adapter signatures and with sort of hidden time locks. Is that what you're calling it? Hidden time locks, maybe?
Yeah, well, that was one of the kind of the fundamentals behind DLSAG. Is like DLSAG was this kind of dual key output system that let you kind of do these switches based on heights, and then you can introduce hidden lock times within that, and then you can use that to build things like, you know, the possibility of non-interactive refunds. Or even like payment channel networks and stuff. So it's all these things you could enable if you had this like fundamental signature construction, but it had this tracing issue that ends up, you know, having it has like all these follow-on issues because of the way the key images are constructed. And like no one, as far as I know, has been able to solve that issue. And it'd be really great if we could.
Got it.
Video Addict had a good question about whether a Monero swap to BTC would skyrocket adoption. You also criticized my talk from my last Monero talk, which is understandable. They don't like the Bitcoin SV, but I think that is a good question. What do you guys think about that? So Monero swap with BTC, is that something that will really start to onboard people?
If I can take this really quickly, like since I just do compliance with exchanges, I don't think that even like a decentralized swapping mechanism is the problem. We already have decentralized services that, granted, they have other limitations. They have user experience limitations, and you know, it's not as ideal as you're probably expecting in this atomic swap package. But the real reason, in my opinion, that you haven't seen significant adoption of, non-compliance oriented exchange transfer between Monero and Bitcoin back and forth is because no one wants to trade with Bitcoin that is accessible for anyone just to show up and you do not know who that counterparty is. There's like a substantial risk that you're going to receive tainted Bitcoin. I've looked at like the BISC market order book, for example. I've run it through a popular analysis software, and I've received risk scores where over 75% of the coins in the Bitcoin order book are tainted by most definitions. So no one wants to touch that stuff, and that's why you haven't seen, in my opinion, substantial adoption on this network that anyone can connect to. No one wants to buy this Bitcoin. No one wants to be associated with it. So even if you have a better potential method to facilitate that trade, you're still going to end up with tainted Bitcoin, or there's going to be a high risk of receiving tainted Bitcoin. So no one's going to want to do it. At least that's my perspective.
Based on what you're saying, so then wouldn't that just cause the ratio between Monero and Bitcoin to kind of skyrocket? So like, yeah, I'm not willing to trade my Monero for tainted BTC or BTC because it may be tainted, unless you're willing to, give me a really good price on the trade.
But the problem is like the only people that are willing to take on that high risk are people that are probably in jurisdictions that don't have substantial AML protections. Like in the United States, it's pretty clear that if you are trading either for profit or you're trading regularly or some combination of those things, you need to register as with FinCEN and follow all their rules. So if you are if there's always an opportunity for you to make money at BISC, you're going to meet the definition because you're going to want to try and make money or trade there often. If you are just an individual that is trading once because you might want to acquire Bitcoin or Monero, maybe you don't meet that definition. I'm not saying you do or don't legally. I'm just saying maybe you would be more likely to not. But ultimately, for people that are trying to trade these things at scale, they can't trade with anonymous counterparties, especially if there's a super high risk of receiving tainted funds. So it's just a non-starter. And having non-fungible assets, no matter what type of mechanics you have in place, at the end of the day, people are going to be buying assets that are likely tainted from someone who they don't know who it is. Like that doesn't fly in most jurisdictions. So I don't think atomic swaps will really improve adoption of Monero or Bitcoin or anything, because what actually changes? Nothing on the compliance side changes.
I'd like to second that opinion that there's a real risk of, if you're selling Monero for Bitcoin, that you're going to get tainted Bitcoin unless you're dealing with strict AML and KYC. And if you look at it from the point of view of someone trying to launder Bitcoin, what better way to do it? You basically buy Monero with it. So you really are running this risk. And I think that's the reason I completely agree with Justin's assessment. I wouldn't use it.
Why wouldn't that be reflected in the price, though?
Well, it might be reflected in liquidity. Like nobody wants to act in the market.
Well, I guess at that point, Doug, it's sort of its own independent market. Like, yes, it might be reflected in the price on that exchange where, let's say, Bitcoin is worth less than Monero compared to other spot rates on other exchanges, but that doesn't really widely affect the market because, as Arcticmine was saying, the majority of the liquidity is by players that trade on these large compliant exchanges that are regulated. So
we need a large money laundering syndicate to join in the BTC side, like call HSBC or something, and say, get on that.
Well, the thing is, I don't think that it's a market for Monero because
I'm running for Congress, so I probably can't. I can't spearhead that one.
Yeah, who's going to want to buy this tainted Bitcoin? I think that's fundamentally the problem. If you had two cryptocurrencies that were totally fungible, then atomic swaps would work.
Yeah, from my personal perspective, I think having a method to have a type of atomic swap or some type of decentralized exchange between Monero and only fully shielded Zcash, not any of this partially transparent crap, but only Zcash that is held in a Z address. I think there's a reasonable argument that Zcash, is fungible, similar to Monero is fungible. So if you had a type of swap between the two, granted, you still have questions about trading with an anonymous counterparty, so you might still have institutions that are less likely to trade, but at least you have a lower barrier where an individual won't be screwed and buy tainted coins, like if they don't meet the definition of a money service business or whatever. Like, at least it solves some of those problems if you're doing an atomic swap with fungible assets only. And Monero is really the only one that like actually meets that requirement without a lot of extra work. So I don't see Monero paired against anything else being used except people that like don't have access, like where it literally is their only option, or people who prefer that option because they can't onboard at a centralized exchange for whatever reason. Like, it's no one wants to purposely sell coins for less than they could somewhere else. So it's weird.
Yeah, it'd have to be like Mimblewimble style chains that are pretty well interoperable with Monero.
Yeah, I think Mimblewimble might be, we'll have to see how the analysis softwares adapt to that. I mean, they've done to some extent, but it hasn't been widely as implemented as
if there was like Taproot style swapping, it would be harder to know which one was a swap and which one was a normal transaction. That's sort of what BTC was hoping with Taproot swapping. They were hoping that it would mess up with the transaction gap history because you wouldn't know whether it was a normal send or a swap to another chain. But then it gets really, really hairy because anybody watching the marketplace could then sort of predict what the swaps were if the amounts were public. And so I had a long discussion with Maxwell, and they had some crazy idea on how they were going to do that. I don't think it's going to work, but I mean, let them try, I guess.
We could even talk about like Liquid with Bitcoin, for example, right? Like that's a confidential transactions. It's not I don't believe it's a Mimblewimble implementation, but it just has confidential transactions. Even so, you still should pay attention to like the source of funds that are turned into Liquid, because if you eventually want to take it out of Liquid, you are going to receive those coins back. So you need to make sure you're also not receiving tainted coins. So this applies to Liquid. It's sort of a whole annoying thing, and it's just confidential transactions alone it doesn't solve your fungibility problem. So you can't just have atomic swaps with something that only has CT. You need to have stronger protections to actually make it a fungible asset. So
I'm going to disagree with that. Like I said, if you look at how Taproot is constructed, it really messes with I guess the term, it adds like a lot of entry to the train because, like I said, it's hard to know when a swap is occurring. If you can hide the public swap market, that's sort of like the really big if.
The one interesting thing I've seen is that there are some desks that trade Bitcoin, and they might advertise more aggressive, lessened AML policies, and in the industry, no one wants to trade with them, right? Because like no one wants to trade with someone who's just going to send them tainted coins, right? And it's interesting because they're heavily promoting Liquid, or some of them are heavily promoting Liquid, and now it's making some people relatively skeptical to trade on Liquid because they don't want to receive coins that are potentially associated with this activity either. They're sort of trying to use Liquid as their way out, and that's sort of interesting to watch. I don't think that's really played out either way. I think there's an opportunity for it to be good enough for people not really to pay attention. It's like, more work than Bitcoin, but I think we'll have to see in maybe 2-3 years time to see how the industry has adapted to these type of challenges. Anyway. Last chance for questions, people. We have 5 minutes left. Going through.
Guys, I'm gonna sign off now. But I'm actually was gonna do a show Roger Ver. I don't know if anybody. I'm doing that right now. I don't know if anybody here has questions you want me to bring up on that show.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Another controversial topic potentially.
Ooh.
I'd like to see Roger Ver's answers on scaling. I mean, what does Bitcoin Cash do? Are they going to actually have an adaptive block size or not?
Yeah,
Are they going to
add a tail emission?
Because are they going to try and do an adaptive block size without a tail of issues? Apparently, is what they're saying. And if you look at their future, and also, I mean, they talk about miner setting limits, but how is that going to happen? How is these things going to happen? There's a lot of questions, I think, in Bitcoin Cash that I kind of feel in some ways it's like Bitcoin, the same debate, but basically like Bitcoin was like 6 years ago, 7 years ago. We sort of there's a deja vu aspect of it. The chain is empty, and here's my favorite one. If you adjust for Nielsen's law, Bitcoin Cash is a smaller block size today than Bitcoin has when Satoshi introduced the 1 megabyte block size. So if you take 1 megabyte and you scale it by Nielsen's law since 2010, you get about 50 megabytes today versus 32. So it's actually a smaller block size than when Satoshi introduced the 1 megabyte block size limit in Bitcoin. So anyway, that's my take on Bitcoin Cash. I mean, they seem to be straddling both sides, and I think there's some hard questions that need to be asked there.
Doug, did you have any other things to add there?
None from my end.
Got it. Looks like no one has any questions in chat either. So one question came, why is Roger not spreading awareness about Monero?
Because he invested in Zcash.
He's got way too much
I
Bitcoin.
saw his name in the report. So are you confident in that, Lee?
No, I don't know. I remember reading that somewhere. I had no idea whether I shouldn't have said that, I guess.
That would just show how fucking stupid he is.
Okay, well, this is.
I guess one thing I could say regarding like the whole like BTC swap idea is that there was a proposal that was put forward a while back, and I can't remember who on GitHub originally posted it, but an idea for like an XMR side and a BTC side of like transaction sets that tried to do like this thing between like a hash time lock thing and like a discrete log pre-image thing to end up doing an effective swap. But it ended up relying on like these cross-curve zero knowledge proving systems that like right now we don't have. And there have been some other ideas on whether or not it could be done like with discrete logs on both sides. And like we have some ideas. So like from a math perspective, like it's still kind of up in the air about whether or not such a thing could like be possible. But
that may have been me. There was a couple people posting about that, but I was on them about whether you could show a zero knowledge proof for 2 secret keys, and then I think you wrote a better paper on that.
Yeah, the original idea was to do it because one of the problems, right, is like the elliptic curve that is used in Monero is not the same one that's used in Bitcoin, and so trying to do like a proof that like a hash pre-image is the same on one side as like a discrete log pre-image on the other side, and like you need to be able to do that with a proving system that you're confident with, and like hashes don't necessarily play nicely with that. Versus if you had something where it was like a discrete log on both sides, then we have methods for doing that, like proving systems for doing it. So still under investigation.
Very cool. Any final comments? We had a decent viewership today, a peak of 57 viewers according to what I'm seeing right now. So very cool. I don't think.
Thanks for hosting, Justin.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, join us again in 2 weeks' time. Set your calendar. We're having the Monero-versary to celebrate the 6th year that Monero has been in existence. So we hope to see you all there. Keep thinking of fun game, challenge, discussion, ideas, because we want to make the day useful for everyone who wants to participate, and of course, everyone who is watching. We want to have it fun for everybody, of course. So yep, thanks everyone for joining. We will catch you again in 2 weeks, and then the next coffee chat will be in 4 weeks. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.